Yo, Kidsway, what is up? Why do I have a spoon in my hand? Yeah, it's a really good question. And actually, the reason I have a spoon in my hand is because it has to do with the message that we're going to get into a little bit later. And as you can see, I've got some other things here on the table, and we'll get to all that in just a minute. But for now, I want to welcome you to our space, welcome you to this place here in Kidsway on YouTube. We're so glad that you decided to join us today. And hey, if this is your first time, my name is Julian. I get to be our pastor here in Kidsway, and I'm so glad that you're here with us today. And it's a great day to be here because we are in week number 3 of our series called Bake Off. This series has been a lot of fun, and we've been talking all about patience. And hey, if patience is kind of a new word for you, the way I want you to think about patience is kind of like this. Patience is waiting for something you want until later. Say, man, I want a cookie right now, but you don't have any cookies, but you have the stuff to make cookies. So you put all the ingredients together, you bring them out and you put them on a cookie tray and you put them in the oven, and now you have to bake them. But when you bake them, you have to wait for them. You can't just eat them right away. They have to go through the cooking process, the baking process, and after a few minutes, then they're ready. And then you can eat them. So patience is kind of like that. You're wanting something right now, but you can't have it right now. So you have to wait. And wait with a good attitude. I think that's very important when it comes to patience, because let's face it, we've all waited for something. But the way we handled it, the way we thought about it, the way that our attitude was while we were waiting, that's what makes a huge difference. I think patience is waiting with a good attitude. And hey, throughout this series, we've had a memory verse that is absolutely amazing. I love this memory verse. It comes from Psalm chapter 27, verse 14. It says this, it says, "Wait for the Lord, be strong and don't lose hope. Wait for the Lord." Psalm 27, 14. And that's a really great verse. I love it. It repeats twice. God repeats himself twice in the same verse. And if you've ever had to repeat yourself, or if your parents or somebody else has ever repeated themselves to you, we know that when you repeat yourself, you're really trying to say something important. And here in this verse, God repeats himself twice in the same verse. He says, "Wait for the Lord." He says, "Wait for me," because he knows that sometimes when we're waiting, we can lose hope. We can think that maybe we're not strong enough to lose hope. But God says, you are strong. Stay strong and don't lose hope. He says, "I am faithful. I keep my promises. Just wait for me." That's what God is telling us in this verse in Psalm 27:14. And we'll get into it a little bit more, but without going any further, I have to tell you our big answer today, because we're going to be talking about a really interesting and kind of a sad story, but still it's a great lesson that we're going to hear. We're talking about a guy named Esau and how he didn't really have patience and how it costed him greatly. And that's where we get our big answer from today. Our big answer today says, if you don't wait, it could cost you. Can you guys say that with me? Ready on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. If you don't wait, it could cost you. One more time. If you don't wait, it could cost you. Great job, everybody. That's our big answer. And that's the answer that we have for the question, what did you learn in church today? So if you get asked that question, you can say, if you don't wait, it could cost you, just like it costed Esau, that we'll see in just a minute. So hey, I am getting ready. We actually are getting ready for one of our most favorite times here in Kidsway, and that is where we sing and dance and worship God together. So if you're able to, wherever you're at, stand up out of your seat and let's worship God and sing and dance together with one of our favorite songs here in Kidsway Studios. Are you ready? Here we go.
You see in me is Jesus. I'm gonna show my friends and family this light glowing inside of me. I'm gonna shine for
Kidsway Studios, welcome back. And hey, I wasn't lying. Singing and dancing, going through that worship time with you guys is really one of my favorite times of the day. And that's one of our favorite songs, Shine a Light. That's like old school Kidsway. We love that song so much. But hey, let's get into our message. And I hope that you don't mind, like I mentioned that we're going to have some stuff up here throughout our message for today. This is one of my favorite foods in the world. This is a pot of chili, and it's one of my favorites. I love chili. So I hope you don't mind that I'm going to be kind of cooking a little bit of chili as we're kind of moving throughout our message for today. And as you know, we're in a series called Bake Off. And so throughout this series, we're talking about patience, right? And we all know that sometimes cooking can kind of take some patience. We might need to kind of get some things set up, put some things together, and wait for a little bit. But if you've ever had to wait for anything, you know that it isn't always the most fun thing to do. But I think we have to wait like almost every day of our lives, right? Like think about it. When it comes to like school, for instance, maybe you have to wait in lines at school, or like even worse, like have you ever been to an amusement park and like had to wait in a line like at Disney or Busch Gardens or any place like that? Like those were the worst for me. I could not stand waiting in those lines. But you still had to have patience to do those things. And sometimes it'll look a little bit different, but I think we use patience everywhere. Like we use it at home. Maybe one of our siblings or our parents are watching a TV show and we have to wait to watch our TV show. We use it at school, like when we have to wait for lunch, like everybody's favorite time of the day, right? We have to wait for lunch. We can't just walk in and just, hey, I'm ready to eat. Let's eat right now. Sometimes we gotta wait for those things. Or maybe you've gone on a road trip with your family. Like one of the things I would always ask on a road trip or any kind of trip is, are we there yet? Right? Like that's kind of some of the things I would ask. And it was a great time, a great opportunity for us to show patience. And I'm cooking this chili right now. Like I said, it's one of my favorites, but the big thing with chili is that it takes some time, and the longer you cook it, the better it gets. So my favorite dish, I have to have patience in order to do it. And I also have to have my secret ingredient. My secret ingredient, don't tell anybody this, is coffee. That's right. I know it sounds crazy, but like everybody has like some kind of crazy ingredient that they put in chili. My father-in-law, he actually puts peanut butter in chili. Can you believe that? It actually comes out really, really good. But my secret ingredient is coffee. And hey, back to patience and what we're talking about today. We're actually going to be talking about this guy in the Bible named Esau. And I want you to think about something before we get into his story. You know, as we're talking about patience and how we use it every day, have you ever thought about what you might lose if you're not patient? That's what our Bible story is all about today. What can you lose if you're not patient? So this Bible story starts a long time ago, like all the way back in Genesis, the very first book of the Bible. And we see God, and he made a promise to a man named Abraham. He said that Abraham would be the father of a great nation. And he was. And we can fast forward a little bit, and Abraham has a son. He ended up having a son and naming the son Isaac. And we can actually kind of, maybe this works out pretty good. Like I got a spoon here. We can say this is Isaac, right? He's this spoon, and not in real life, obviously, but for our demonstration today, this spoon is going to be Isaac. Isaac grew up to be a really great guy, and he meets another really nice spoon. He meets a really nice woman, and her name was Rebecca. So we got Isaac and Rebecca, and these two went on to have a pretty cool life, but they did have their struggles. You see, early on, it was said that Rebecca was not going to be able to have children, that these two would not be able to have any children. But God being faithful and always keeping his promises, he actually made it to where they could have children. And so these two go forward and they end up getting the great and fantastic news that, hey, you two actually are going to have children. And so they celebrate, they get really very happy. But as time goes on, Rebecca hears something from the Lord. And it's in Genesis 25 where we get to hear what she had heard. And this is what God had told her. 2 nations are in your body. 2 tribes that are now inside you will be separated. 1 nation will be stronger than the other. The older son will serve the younger one. So, I guess these two brothers, these two babies inside of Rebekah, were destined to fight. All right, so the time had finally come for the boys to arrive. And we have our two boys right here. And you might be asking why we have so many spoons on the table, but it just kind of works for the story. So we're telling it through spoons. And this is how it's gonna go. We have our two boys. We had Isaac and Rebekah, and their two boys are Jacob and Esau. And remember, God had told Rebekah that these two boys were probably gonna fight a lot. And what happened was when they were born, Jacob was actually holding on to Esau's foot. So right from the beginning, we have these two boys going at it. But nonetheless, these two boys, they were actually twins. And even though they were twins, they could not have been more different than each other. You see, Esau was really good, and he was a skillful hunter. He was really good at being outside and doing those types of things. Where Jacob, on the other hand, he was really content and happy just staying at the tent and staying at home with his mom. And so, a little bit of time goes on, and Esau actually wound up being his father's favorite child. The Bible tells us that Esau's dad really enjoyed the flavor of wild game, or wild animals. And with Esau being a good hunter, he ended up being his dad's favorite son. But can you guess what happened to Jacob? Jacob stayed home a lot, and by default, he learned to do a lot of the things that would happen at home, and he would hang out with his mom a lot, and she liked that. But by default, Jacob, became his mom's favorite child. But you see, there was something that was going on back then, and there was a law that happened whenever the oldest son, or whenever the father would pass away, the oldest son would take control and be the leader of the family. Well, since we have twins, we don't really know exactly who was older since they were kind of born at the same time. But we do know that Esau was his dad's favorite son. So what had happened was his dad, Jacob, made a law that said, whenever I pass away, Esau was going to get all the rights to be the leader of the family. He was going to get the property, and he was going to get to be the one in charge. Well, this really didn't make Jacob feel so great. So what happened one day is Esau was out in the open plains, out in the open fields, doing his thing, hunting wild game, being outside, being that guy. And Jacob just so happened to be cooking a pot of stew at home, kind of like this awesome chili that we have here. We're getting ready to grub on, right? And it's coming along really actually pretty nice. I'm getting kind of excited to have it. But anyways, we have Jacob at home cooking a pot of stew, and then we have Esau coming home from the wilderness. Esau comes barreling through the house and says, "I'm hungry, I need to eat." And Jacob is there saying, "Well, I have a pot of stew." But Jacob was very crafty. He knew how to use his mind, and he knew how to think. And Jacob was upset that Esau was going to get to be the one to be in control and be the leader of the family. So Jacob thought to himself, he was like, "Okay, Esau, I have a pot of stew over here. You're hungry. And if you want to eat the stew, then you have to sell me your rights as leader of the family whenever dad passes away." And Esau was so blinded by his hunger. Esau was like, "I'm so hungry that I'm gonna die. What good are those rights to me right now?" Jacob was like, "Okay, sell me your rights, and then I'll give you the stew." And Esau was like, "Okay, that sounds great." And so Esau sold over his rights to be the leader of the family, to give up all of those things, all those wonderful things that were gonna come his way, all because he couldn't wait to eat. And so the story goes on, and Esau actually did sell Jacob all the rights to the family, and Esau just dove in to the stew, kind of like this pot of chili that we have here. And Jacob ended up having all the rights to the family. So it might be really hard to imagine being so hungry that you would give up your birthright, something as important and valuable as your birthrights, especially when they were as important as they were with Esau. The leadership of the family, the house, the land, like this was a really big deal. And Esau gave it up for something as simple as a meal, even if it was as good as my award-winning chili. At the end of the day, he gave up something really important and valuable for something that would only fill his stomach for a few hours. And this came to him at a huge cost. Because he wasn't patient, it cost him severely. And it sounds crazy, but we can maybe do the same thing sometimes. And we might not lose something as important as a birthright, but maybe we can lose our screen time privileges because we didn't wait. We didn't have patience. Maybe we can miss out on doing something fun with our families because we didn't know how to wait patiently and wait with a good attitude. Maybe it might even boil down to something a little worse. Like maybe we might say something to a friend that we actually regret and wish that we never said. And because we said it, now we don't know if that friend is going to be our friend anymore. Maybe it's cost us a friendship. Patience can be very, very important and is very, very important. It's so important that sometimes if we don't wait, it can cost us, just like our big answer says. And even furthermore, our memory verse says, wait for the Lord, be strong and don't lose hope. Wait for the Lord. Psalm 27:14. Remember, God's saying that patience is so important that he actually repeats himself in the same verse twice. He repeats himself saying that all throughout the Bible of having patience and being able to wait. Patience is so very important when it comes to our lives personally, when it comes to our relationships with our families, when it comes to our relationships with our friends, and especially when it comes to our relationship with God. He says, wait for me. You are strong, so be strong and don't lose hope. It might take time, but don't lose hope. Just wait for me. Wait for the Lord. So, Kids Way, I hope that throughout this story and from Esau's example that you learn to have patience so that way not waiting for something doesn't cost you something so very important. You can have patience. And if you need help with patience, you can always pray to God and ask him to help you with that. But for right now, we're going to take some time. We're going to focus on Jesus. We're going to focus on him right now through our time of worship. And hey, this time is so very important. Don't give it away. Don't spend it focused on somebody else or something else. If you can right now, do your best to just focus on God. So let's spend some time with him in worship.
Who am I that the highest king would welcome me? I was lost, but he brought me in. Oh, his love for me. Oh, his love for me. Who the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, he died for me. Who the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. is a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am.
All right, kids, wait. Can you guys repeat with me? Say, if you don't wait, it could cost you. One more time. Say, if you don't wait, it could cost you. Great job. You know our big answer. And just like we saw in Esau's story, he was impatient. He didn't want to eat, or he didn't want to wait at all. He decided that he was going to eat, and he needed to eat right now, even if it meant that he had to give up his birthright. And even if that stew was the best stew ever, even if it was as good as my chili, I still don't think that it was worth giving up something as important, as valuable as a birthright. And if you continue to read, we'll find out that Jacob actually played a really large and a really big and a really important role in the Bible. And if you fast forward a long, long time away from Jacob, Jacob was actually part of the family line for Jesus. This was a big deal. Jacob was part of the family line that changed the world. And Esau missed out on this because he was impatient. So I want you to think, what is impatience costing you? What does it cost you when you're not patient? It could cost you something very, very big. It can cost you something very, very little. But at the end of the day, I want you to think, what does me not having patience, what is that going to cost me? It could be something big. It could be something little. But I want you to think about it. And hey, like we said, we have a memory verse in Psalm 27:14. God repeats himself in this memory verse. It says, wait for me. Don't forget that. Wait for God. Sometimes that can be hard because we can be stuck in a situation that we do not like whatsoever. But we're called to trust God. We're called to believe in him. Even if we don't understand what's going on, even if we don't like what's going on, it's for us. We're called to trust in his timing and to know that no matter what, his timing is perfect. And that situation that we're in is teaching us something. It's helping us to do something. It might even be making us stronger. But it's for us to believe that God's timing is perfect. He tells us that he's never going to leave us, that he's always going to be with us, that he's going to be there when we need strength, that he's going to deliver us from things that we don't like. But it's for us to believe in him and trust him, and that his timing is perfect. And remember, if you need help with patience, you can pray and ask God to help you with it. Something very simple, just to say, God, help me have patience. Something as simple as that, and God will help you. He is faithful and he loves you. He sees you. He knows what's going on with your life, and he hears your prayers. He loves you so much that he's never going to leave you. But it's up to you to decide if you're going to trust in his timing and believe that his will is perfect. Kidsway Studio, will you bow your heads and pray with me before we dismiss you today? Father, thank you for this time. Thank you for getting us here today. And Lord, I want to lift up those that are in a hard time, those that are in a time that they don't understand why they have to be in this situation right now. For those that don't know, they might be confused as to why things in their life are happening the way that they are. God, I want to lift them up to you right now. Father, let them know that you are not far from them, that you are right next to them, that you hear them, that you love them, and you know what they need. Now, Lord, I pray that you would give them and give all of us patience and courage to trust in you and to believe that your timing is perfect. Lord, send your Spirit to grant peace. Send your Spirit to grant comfort, and send your Spirit to give us confidence in who you are. We love you so much, Lord, and it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen, Kidsway. So hey, that was week 3 of our series called Bake Off. Next week is our 4th and final week, so don't miss it. Trust me, it's going to be awesome. And until then, be good, stay safe, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye.